never, under any circumstances, get involved in online drama, because that just feeds that. And the more you feed that dog, the more it's going to want.
Yep.
And I can tell you, I had a Twitter account for almost 2 weeks, I think, before I said I can't deal with this. Because I kept finding myself wanting to be like, oh, tell that guy, get them. And then I had the hate mob after me, and I thought, this is not worth it. It's probably some 8-year-old with his mom's phone out there telling me off. And I'm like, I'm done with this. So,
did Tim just confess to getting in an online fight with an 8-year-old?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Parker Miley.
I'm Tim Benjamin.
And this is the Rage Podcast, where today we are going to talk about how everyone wants good news, yet are we only saying that to put on a show?
I mean, if you spent more than, 10 seconds on the internet for the past 10 years, you'll find out that YouTube and all these social media sites are all full of people who are just having a fit about something.
Something, anything.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are having a fit about people having a fit. I mean, we go we go on and on and on and on.
It's this perpetual toilet cycle.
It never ends.
Yeah.
Where did the good news go?
Yeah.
Where did the news of, the child getting a free ice cream cone from down the street, or whatever you old people that used to live in good times think of as good news.
Yeah, thank you for not looking at me when you said that. Yeah,
yeah, but it's a question that I think a lot of us have asked, in obviously within recent times. Where is the good updates about what's going on in the world, rather than doom and gloom and everything else that we're getting.
Yeah, well, when you're news junkies like Parker and I are, It's true. In fact, I'm trying to think what it was. Something happened in the last, couple of weeks, and it was a good news. And the news commentator even said, "I know this seems weird, but we have something good to share with you."
Yep.
And it just, how did we get here?
Yeah.
That we just love bad news,
and we feed off of it. It's like it's become the only way we can get information is if it's bad.
Yeah.
Even if it's good, I feel like even there's sometimes there is good news.
Yeah, but we got to spin it.
Media has to make it something as if it's detrimental to our livelihoods.
Yeah. So I think what this question becomes is now we're to the chicken or the egg question. So did our love of bad news, is that what the media is feeding, or did media create all this bad news? So that's what we're used to.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I hate to give away the punchline for this episode, 2.5 minutes in, but don't be that way. If somebody comes to you and tells you something good, be excited about it. And I'm so sorry that we have to tell you to do that.
Yeah, don't and it's almost like we don't. This is also the grander scheme of society, I think, but we don't really see the good. Yeah. And I feel like once at a time, people did see good. But now you tell me something that I'm supposed to actually be feeling excited and happy about, and I have to process. And this is how I'm supposed to be feeling.
Right. And we got to tell you where this came from. A podcaster that Parker and I both know and love very much, a famous podcaster, Matt Walsh. His wife had twins last week. And obviously, as any proud father would, he posted on his social media, and everybody just went to town talking about how awful and terrible and misogynistic and God knows what else this was. And and it's like, come on, guys, the guy just had 2 healthy babies. There's no downside. That's something that we can be excited about, yet the rage mob had to just go after and whatever.
Yeah. And so in this time of society where bad news is just the first thing we go to, and really sometimes all we get, even if it's good news decorated as bad news, that's all we're getting. It's puts a big toll on how we view everything else. I think we've been hitting at that for the last couple minutes now, but as the church, as if you don't know, Pastor Tim, he's a pastor of a church.
Hence the title.
I'm Parker.
Pastor Parker.
And so
Bishop Miley.
Yeah, and so all these things. So we Tim has kind of taken on a job where he's going to encounter a lot of bad news, right? From personal families going through struggles, from a community going through certain things. He's going to hear a lot of bad news.
You're making me question my life choices, Parker. But
however, Pastor Tim is supposed to be the man that has this special key, all right? And it's called the key to good news, right? Pastors have that. Church people have that. It's this great thing called good news, the gospel, the good news, and all these things. Yet, and I see it even in the church today, we have destroyed that term good news. Like, where did the aspect of good news come from? We've just focused so much on the negative, we've lost so much of that aspect of, well, not just that, but the whole faith in reality.
Yeah, and one of the things that has resulted in fact, I was reading a book just last night, and the author was talking about doctors in the early 70s, I think it was. I hope I'm getting that date right. And this bigwig medical doctor went down to talk to a family doctor who lived out in rural Wisconsin, and the rural doctor was speaking to this bigwig, and he said, you know, I typically don't see any heart disease in anyone until their mid to late 60s. And this bigwig doctor who had been doing all these clinics on heart and all this stuff couldn't believe that. How could the guy out in Wisconsin have so few, see so few instances of heart disease when he felt like that's all he was dealing with? And what he did is he put that to lifestyle. The lifestyle the people that the family doctor out in rural Wisconsin was dealing with was very different than the lifestyle that he was dealing with in a very urban setting. And this was in the 70s. I think that lifestyle, that kind of need to have something to react passionately to in a negative way, it has a physical outcome. Yes, we have medical technology today that never existed before. We can extend life in miraculous ways, and that's great. But at the same time, diseases of like hypertension and heart disease is becoming more prevalent. And I think that's because we are internalizing so much of this negativity that we're taking in all the time. And that was the point that the author of the book was making, was we internalize so much of this, and we take so much of it in, and we think that's how we should approach the world, when really we should be choosing a more joyful approach. Yeah, there's bad stuff, okay? I'm not trying to sugarcoat that and say, well, everything's fine, because clearly it's not. But at the same time, we don't need to bathe in that poison all the time. And I've seen it in myself. When things at the church are not going well, and that kind of stuff, and I internalize a lot of that, and I get upset. I go home and I'm still upset, and I'm trying to sleep and I'm still upset, and that stuff does follow you around. And again, I'm not saying that you should just be happy all the time, because that's fake and that's not going to help. But the thing that we are looking to fill our lives with, if we are looking for that negativity, I think that's what Parker's getting to. We're looking for it and taking that in, that's going to have a really awful effect on you.
Well, here's the example I was going to give, because it's fairly relatable to both Tim, I, and some other people that are going to watch this video. We had crowds upon crowds upon crowds of people show up for meetings about disaffiliation.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that one yet.
And that's not good news.
In fact, we're going to have one this Sunday.
Yeah. It's not good news, but it's bad news, right? The fact that we even have to have this conversation, but tons of people come out for it.
That's an analogy I hadn't even thought of.
When on a Sunday morning, we have seen some faces that we've never seen on a Sunday morning show up to these meetings. When on a Sunday morning, the whole purpose is to get the good news, get what actual good news.
I mean, that's literally the point of the service.
That's what Sunday morning worship services are about, right? But for these disaffiliation meetings, we had sometimes more people than our regular attendance and services.
And part of that was because more people made a priority to show up, and I get that. But the point Parker's making is valid. It was the fact that we're upset about this, so now we're motivated to get involved.
And so don't compare it to Sunday morning. Here at Wayne Street, we have several things going on throughout the week. I would love to see 170 people show up to a small group.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no, small group, that's too joyful and good. I want to be ticked off. Yeah,
and I'm sure there's more going on in that. But again, the point is valid. And I think that's what these two doctors were talking about in this book I was reading, was the same thing. The people in Wisconsin were very focused on family, very focused on backyard barbecues and all that cool stuff that we do in the country, where this other doctor was dealing with urban settings and college settings where they were protesting and they were angry and whatever else. And I think that's very true, is that once we internalize that much negativity, it's going to have an effect. And we've got to make an effort to counterbalance that with some positive things.
Yeah. And so Tim's talking about it's going to not all that negativity is going to negatively affect your health overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also it goes beyond that. Tim, you're part of several organizations. You've been in several churches before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Negativity, once you consume so much negativity and the negative people begin to get that louder following and voice, it destroys a church, right?
Mm-hmm.
It destroys an organization.
Mm-hmm. It does. I've seen it multiple times.
The same thing happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes kind of remembering that, wait a second, good news exists, we're just rejecting it all the time.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how our society
at the very least, we're not focusing on it like we
not
should.
focusing,
Yeah.
but I also think a lot of us are guilty of rejecting it because it doesn't give us that same kind of adrenaline rush
yeah.
and kind of excitement that bad news can bring.
Which is not good for you.
Yep.
That's the point we're making.
Yes.
And we call this the Rage Podcast. There's a reason. The Rage is
Yeah.
an acronym. If you go look at our channel, you can see why
Mm-hmm.
we call it that. But what we want people to see is you can't stay in that angry, keyed up moment all the time. Yes, you need to be there sometimes. In fact, maybe sometimes we need to be there more often because there's certain things we should be angry about. But at the same time, you got to counterbalance that, and you got to take a break from it, and you got to turn the phone off, and you got to close the apps, and not feed on that, because that has an effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a physical effect like I was talking about, but it also has an effect that will manifest itself in relationships. It will manifest itself in different things you're trying to do, and suddenly, if you think that adrenaline rush of anger is what you're looking for in every situation, if you go into a situation looking for that, you're probably going to find it.
Yep.
Even though it wasn't there to start with, you brought it there.
Yeah.
And we all know that person who every time they go into something, everybody ends up angry, and they think, man, everybody's angry, and they're like, nah, I think it's you. That's not good for anybody, and it's certainly not good for an organization.
Yeah. Certainly not good for an organization. Certainly not good for the church universal and all those things. So,
well, and it's also not good for our reputation.
Yep.
In that like especially like Parker's talking about here, we're supposed to be focusing on the good news, but every time we come in here, we're having a fight and a knockdown drag out. I mean, I've had church meetings where we almost had to call the police. Okay, I've been in those. Not here at Wayne Street.
I could only dream.
Yeah, but I got to think. Every time we have an ad council meeting, the police are sitting in the parking lot. Don't you think people are going to catch on to that? And all we're going to do is attract more people who are attracted to that, and we're going to repel people who aren't.
Yeah.
And that's a tough way to go, because that ends up with an organization just going down in flames.
Yep. And
we are responsible for that. What it is, just like your diet. If you're making a diet of Twinkies and pop, or soda, as Don would say, you're going to reap the benefit of that. Well, it's the same thing in your emotional and spiritual and your soul. If you're going to do nothing but take in that kind of stuff that just sets you off, then that's the way that you're going to be responsible for the results of that. You may not be the one responsible for creating it in the first place, but if that's all you're consuming and that's all you have, then what results from that are going to be results that you own.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be results you're going to like. And at the end of the day, yes, there are some times that passionate, angry people change things. It happens. But I think it's the exception, not the rule. I think far too often we just end up in an argument that goes nowhere, or a circular argument, or we end up trying to fix things by putting together a circular firing squad. And I think a lot of times that's what happens. And so I think the antidote to that is don't be very careful about going into things looking for that. What do I not like? What do I disagree with? Because what you end up doing going down that road is you're going to define yourself by what I'm opposed to. And amazingly, you're going to find it everywhere. Suddenly I'm opposed to everything. And sometimes we gotta define ourselves in positive ways too. And that helps screen out some of the other things that we don't want to be a part of. So it's just very unfortunate that we live in a world that is fueled by adrenaline and fueled by what we hate. And again, spend 5 minutes on the internet and
you'll find it.
Yeah, because it's what I mean. I don't know that the internet would exist without it.
Yeah, in all reality, a lot of social media would probably be destroyed if that wasn't the
we'd all be like
mindset of
Facebook,
everyone.
Twitter. What is that? If it wasn't for the angry people who are on it, I'm not. I don't even have accounts on any of those sites. And I can tell you, I had a Twitter account for almost 2 weeks, I think, before I said I can't deal with this. Because I kept finding myself wanting to be like, oh, tell that guy, I'm going to get them. And then I had the hate mob after me, and I thought, this is not worth it.
Because
all I'm trying to do is one up these people. I don't even know who they are. It's probably some
Tim opened his mouth on Twitter.
That's right. It's probably some 8-year-old with his mom's phone out there telling me off. And I'm like, I'm done with this. So, yeah.
Did Tim just confess to getting in an online fight with an 8-year-old?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes. And while I'm not sure that's what happened, if I found out it was, I would not be surprised. But, yeah. So don't live your life that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point of this episode.
I guess. Take it as a reminder to find something good.
Yes.
Find the pros and not the cons always.
Right.
Find all right,
And again, I'm going to let you finish your thought. Never, under any circumstances, get involved in online drama. Just don't even get involved in it, because that just feeds that. And the more you feed that dog, the more it's going to want.
Yep.
And then you're going to start looking for it in real life. Oh, just stay away from that.
So many of us find the negatives about, the area we live in, right? No matter where you live in, right? You find the negatives first.
Yep.
Find some kind of positive.
Yep.
You wouldn't have been there that long if you couldn't find a positive,
sure.
right? So
in your spouse, in your families, in your church, in your work, in your house, in yourself. Yeah, look for some positive.
Instead of writing the cons list all the time as to why I'm about to quit this job, or why I'm going to move this town, just take a little bit of time and focus on some of the pros that exist in the realm of your life.
Because you'd be surprised how many there are.
Yeah.
But the media, it doesn't sell. If it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. That kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that can convince you that there's nothing but bad out there. And look, there's the argument to be made that maybe it is. But at the end of the day, what you're consuming, you're responsible for. And if all you're consuming, if all you're drinking out of is that cup of negativity, then you're going to be responsible for what happens to you because of that. And that's a road you don't want to go down.
Yep.
So find the positive, find the good. Yeah, it's fun to get on and complain about stuff. It's fun to do that sometimes, but don't live your life there. All right, everybody, we want you to go focus on what's positive. Go find it. Go out there and look for it. Dig for it if you've got to, but it's out there, especially in your church, whether you're at Wayne Street or Walnut Grove or any place else, whatever church you're a part of. Find something positive there. There is something positive there. You might have to look, but it's there, and the message is good. And don't let the negativity drown that message out. Because, look, we as Christians, it's our responsibility to do that, because there's enough people out there drumming up controversy. So let's not get involved.
Yep.
All right, guys. Have a great week, and keep looking for the positive.